Summary of the Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. Introduction. Wholehearted living. Wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It's about going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Wholehearted living is not a one-time choice. It's a process that requires daily practice. Brown introduces the concepts of courage, compassion, and connection as essential tools for this journey. She explains that courage involves telling our story with our whole heart, compassion means treating ourselves kindly, and connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. These concepts are intertwined and must be cultivated together to achieve a wholehearted life. Brown emphasizes the importance of embracing imperfection and vulnerability. She argues that by doing so, we can find our true gifts, courage, compassion, and connection. This journey is not about attaining a state of perfect happiness or eliminating fear, but about understanding that we are enough as we are. In the introduction, Brown shares her own struggles with worthiness and how embracing imperfection has transformed her life. She recounts how she used to feel driven by the need to be perfect and how this led to feelings of fear, judgment, and loneliness. Through her research and personal experiences, she discovered that embracing vulnerability and imperfection allowed her to connect more deeply with others and find true belonging. Brown also introduces the idea of cultivating a resilient spirit. She explains that resilience is not just about bouncing back from adversity but also about cultivating the ability to feel all emotions, including joy and gratitude. She shares stories from her research participants who have demonstrated resilience through their ability to embrace vulnerability and cultivate joy, even in the face of difficult circumstances. The introduction sets the stage for the 10 guideposts that follow in the book. These guideposts provide practical advice and strategies for cultivating a wholehearted life. They include letting go of what people think, letting go of perfectionism, cultivating gratitude and joy, and embracing rest and play. Each guidepost is illustrated with stories, definitions, quotes, and ideas for making deliberate and inspired choices about the way we live and love. In summary, the introduction to the Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown lays the foundation for the journey of wholehearted living. It emphasizes the importance of courage, compassion, and connection and the need to embrace imperfection and vulnerability. Brown shares her personal struggles and insights, setting the stage for the practical guideposts that follow. The ultimate goal is to cultivate a life of worthiness, resilience, and true belonging. Chapter 1: Courage, Compassion, and Connection, the Gifts of Imperfection. In this chapter, Brown delves into the concepts of courage, compassion, and connection, which she identifies as the foundational tools for cultivating a wholehearted life. She begins by explaining that the word courage comes from the Latin word cor, meaning heart. Originally, courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has evolved, but the essence remains the same. Courage is about being open and honest about who we are, our experiences, and our feelings. Brown highlights that ordinary courage is about putting our vulnerability on the line. It's about sharing our imperfections and experiences with others. She recounts stories from her research participants who have demonstrated this kind of courage by being willing to share their struggles and feelings of shame. This willingness to be vulnerable, she explains, is the key to building true connection with others. Compassion, according to Brown, is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Brown emphasizes that self-compassion is equally important as compassion for others. She argues that we cannot practice compassion with others if we cannot treat ourselves kindly. Self-compassion involves treating ourselves with the same kindness and care that we would offer to a friend. Connection, the third component, is defined as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Brown explains that connection is why we are here. It gives purpose and meaning to our lives. She shares insights from her research, showing that those who feel a strong sense of love and belonging believe they are worthy of love and belonging. This sense of worthiness, she explains, comes from a deep sense of love and acceptance, what she calls wholeheartedness. Brown also discusses the importance of embracing vulnerability in order to cultivate these qualities. She explains that vulnerability is not weakness, but rather the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. She argues that our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The more we are willing to embrace our vulnerability, the more we grow into our true selves. Throughout the chapter, Brown interweaves personal anecdotes and stories from her research participants to illustrate these concepts. She recounts her own experiences with vulnerability, including moments of shame and the fear of not being good enough. She explains how embracing these experiences and sharing them with others has helped her build deeper connections and cultivate a sense of worthiness. Chapter 2: Cultivating Authenticity, Letting Go of What People Think. Here Brown delves into the concept of authenticity and its importance in living a wholehearted life. Authenticity, she explains, is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. It involves cultivating the courage to be imperfect, setting boundaries, and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Authenticity requires us to exercise compassion towards ourselves and others, and to nurture the connection and sense of belonging that can only happen when we believe that we are enough. Brown emphasizes that choosing authenticity is not easy. It requires courage and resilience to show up and be seen, especially in a society that often values conformity over individuality. She shares E. Cummings' quote, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best, night and day, to make you everybody but yourself, means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight, and never stop fighting." This battle, Brown explains, is one of the most courageous and rewarding we can undertake. One of the major challenges to authenticity is the fear of what people think. Brown explores how our need for approval and fear of rejection often lead us to conform to societal expectations and hide our true selves. This fear is deeply rooted in our desire for belonging and connection. However, when we sacrifice our authenticity for the sake of fitting in, we end up feeling disconnected and unfulfilled. Brown also discusses the concept of fitting in versus belonging. Fitting in, she explains, is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are, it requires us to be who we are. True belonging only happens when we present our authentic selves to the world, and our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. The chapter further delves into the idea that authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. These choices include the decision to show up and be real, to be honest, and to let our true selves be seen. Brown acknowledges that these choices can be challenging, especially in a culture that often dictates how we should look, act, and feel. She explains that authenticity is not about being perfect or getting it right every time, but about being real and showing up as we are. Brown shares personal stories and research findings to illustrate the power of authenticity. She recounts her own struggles with perfectionism and the fear of what others think. She describes how embracing her imperfections and choosing to be authentic has transformed her life and relationships. Brown emphasizes that practicing authenticity requires setting boundaries and making deliberate choices about how we want to live and love. The chapter concludes with the notion that authenticity demands wholehearted living and loving, even when it's hard and we are wrestling with shame and fear. Brown encourages readers to practice authenticity during their most soul-searching struggles as a way to invite grace, joy, and gratitude into their lives. Chapter 3: Cultivating Self-Compassion, Letting Go of Perfectionism. In this chapter, Brown addresses the detrimental effects of perfectionism and the importance of self-compassion in living a wholehearted life. Perfectionism, she explains, is not the same as striving to be our best. It is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought: if I look perfect, live perfectly, and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. Brown highlights that perfectionism is about trying to earn approval and acceptance. Most perfectionists were raised being praised for achievement and performance, grades, manners, rule-following, people-pleasing, appearance, sports. Somewhere along the way, they adopted this dangerous and debilitating belief system: I am what I accomplish and how well I accomplish it. Please. Perform. Perfect. Perfectionism is not self-improvement. At its core, perfectionism is about trying to earn approval and acceptance. Brown explains that healthy striving is self-focused: how can I improve? Perfectionism is other-focused: what will they think? It is a key driver of depression, anxiety, addiction, and life paralysis. Life paralysis refers to all the opportunities we miss because we're too afraid to put anything out in the world that could be imperfect. To overcome perfectionism, we must be able to acknowledge our vulnerabilities to the universal experiences of shame, judgment, and blame. This requires developing shame resilience and practicing self-compassion. Self-compassion, according to Dr. Kristen Neff, has 3 elements: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Self-kindness involves being warm and understanding toward ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or flagellating ourselves with self-criticism. Common humanity recognizes that suffering and feelings of personal inadequacy are part of the shared human experience. Mindfulness requires taking a balanced approach to negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. Brown shares her own experiences with perfectionism and how embracing self-compassion has transformed her life. She discusses the importance of setting boundaries and being realistic about what we can accomplish. Brown emphasizes that perfectionism is not the same as striving to be our best. Perfectionism is driven by a fear of not being enough, while healthy striving is about growth and improvement. The chapter also explores the connection between perfectionism and vulnerability. Brown explains that perfectionism is a shield we use to protect ourselves from feeling vulnerable. However, embracing vulnerability is essential for developing resilience and living a wholehearted life. She encourages readers to let go of perfectionism and embrace their imperfections as a way to cultivate self-compassion and connection. Chapter 4: Cultivating Gratitude and Joy, Letting Go of Scarcity and Fear of the Dark. In this chapter, Brown explores the profound connection between gratitude and joy, presenting them as essential components of a wholehearted life. She begins by addressing the pervasive culture of scarcity, characterized by a sense of lack and fear. This culture convinces us that we are never enough, do not have enough, and will never be enough. Scarcity creates an environment of fear that inhibits our ability to experience joy. Brown argues that gratitude is the antidote to this scarcity mindset. She explains that gratitude is not just an attitude but a practice that involves acknowledging and appreciating the positive aspects of our lives. Through her research, she discovered that people who describe themselves as joyful actively practice gratitude. They do not wait for joyful experiences to feel grateful; instead, they practice gratitude as a way to cultivate joy. The chapter delves into the distinction between happiness and joy. Happiness, according to Brown, is tied to external circumstances and is often fleeting. Joy, on the other hand, is a spiritual way of engaging with the world that is connected to gratitude and a sense of abundance. Joyful people do not derive their joy from material possessions or external achievements; instead, they find joy in ordinary moments and the relationships they cultivate. Brown introduces the concept of foreboding joy, a phenomenon where people sabotage their own happiness because they are afraid that feeling joy will make them vulnerable to pain and disappointment. She describes how this fear leads people to withhold joy and live in a constant state of anxiety. To counter this, she suggests practicing gratitude as a way to stay present and appreciate the good moments without letting fear take over. The chapter also explores the importance of acknowledging and expressing gratitude through specific practices. Brown emphasizes the power of writing gratitude lists, keeping gratitude journals, and verbally expressing thanks to others. These practices help to reinforce positive emotions and create a habit of recognizing the good in our lives. Brown shares personal anecdotes and stories from her research participants to illustrate the impact of gratitude on their lives. She recounts how practicing gratitude has transformed her own experiences and relationships, allowing her to be more present and engaged. By embracing gratitude, she has learned to savor joyful moments and build resilience against life's challenges. The chapter concludes with a reflection on the importance of embracing both joy and gratitude as essential components of a wholehearted life. Brown encourages readers to let go of scarcity and fear by practicing gratitude daily. She suggests simple actions, such as noting 3 things you are grateful for each day or sharing what you are thankful for during family meals, as practical ways to cultivate gratitude. Overall, this chapter emphasizes that gratitude is a powerful tool for overcoming scarcity and fear, and it is essential for experiencing true joy. By actively practicing gratitude, we can shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, leading to a more joyful and fulfilling life. Chapter 5: Cultivating Intuition and Trusting Faith, Letting Go of the Need for Certainty. This chapter delves into the concepts of intuition and faith as integral components of a wholehearted life. She begins by exploring the nature of intuition, describing it as a rapid, unconscious process of recognizing patterns and making connections. Intuition, she explains, is not independent of reasoning but works alongside it, drawing on our past experiences, knowledge, and emotional responses to guide our decisions. Brown highlights that intuition involves trusting ourselves and our ability to make sound judgments without needing to rely on external validation. She explains that many of us struggle with trusting our intuition because we crave certainty and fear making the wrong decisions. This fear often leads us to seek assurances from others rather than relying on our inner wisdom. The chapter explores how our need for certainty can undermine our intuition. Brown argues that our discomfort with uncertainty and ambiguity drives us to seek definitive answers, even when they are not available. This quest for certainty can stifle our ability to trust our instincts and make decisions based on our inner knowing. Brown introduces the concept of faith as a counterpart to intuition. Faith, she explains, is not about religious belief but about trusting in the unknown and having the courage to move forward without guarantees. Faith requires letting go of the need for certainty and embracing the vulnerability that comes with not knowing the outcome. It involves believing in ourselves and the process, even when the path ahead is unclear. She shares personal stories and anecdotes from her research participants to illustrate the power of intuition and faith. Brown recounts her own struggles with embracing uncertainty and how learning to trust her intuition has transformed her life. She describes moments when she had to rely on her inner voice, even when it contradicted conventional wisdom or the opinions of others. Brown emphasizes that cultivating intuition and faith involves embracing vulnerability and accepting that we cannot control every aspect of our lives. She encourages readers to practice mindfulness and stillness as ways to connect with their inner wisdom. By creating quiet spaces in our lives, we can better hear our intuition and build the trust needed to act on it. The chapter also explores the role of intuition and faith in navigating difficult decisions and life transitions. Brown provides practical advice for developing a stronger connection with our intuition, such as paying attention to bodily sensations, reflecting on past experiences, and seeking solitude to clear our minds. She also discusses the importance of surrounding ourselves with supportive people who encourage us to trust ourselves. Chapter 6: Cultivating Creativity, Letting Go of Comparison. In this chapter, Brown addresses the vital role of creativity in living a wholehearted life. She argues that creativity is not just for artists but is essential for everyone. Creativity allows us to make meaning out of our experiences and express our unique selves. Brown explains that many people mistakenly believe they are not creative because they do not engage in traditional artistic activities. However, she emphasizes that creativity can manifest in various forms, such as problem-solving, cooking, gardening, and even parenting. Brown discusses the cultural messages that discourage creativity. From a young age, we are often taught to prioritize productivity and conformity over creative expression. This conditioning leads to the internalization of a belief that creativity is frivolous or only for those with special talents. As a result, many people suppress their creative instincts, fearing judgment and criticism. One of the primary barriers to creativity is comparison. Brown explains that comparing ourselves to others stifles our creative expression. When we compare our work, lives, and selves to others, we undermine our unique perspectives and contributions. She quotes Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Brown expands on this idea, noting that comparison not only robs us of joy but also of creativity. The chapter delves into the importance of embracing our imperfections and vulnerabilities in the creative process. Brown argues that creativity requires us to take risks and be open to failure. She shares stories from her research participants who have experienced profound growth and fulfillment by engaging in creative activities, despite their fears and self-doubt. These stories illustrate that the creative process is inherently messy and imperfect, but it is also deeply rewarding. Brown introduces the concept of gremlins, the internal voices that feed our self-doubt and fear of judgment. These gremlins tell us that our creative efforts are not good enough, that we should stick to what we know, and that it is safer to blend in than to stand out. She emphasizes the importance of recognizing and challenging these gremlins to reclaim our creative power. The chapter also explores the connection between creativity and spirituality. Brown explains that engaging in creative activities can be a form of spiritual practice, providing a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. She shares her personal experiences of finding solace and inspiration through creative endeavors, such as writing and painting. By embracing creativity, we can tap into a source of joy, meaning, and resilience. To cultivate creativity, Brown suggests making time for creative activities and surrounding ourselves with supportive people who encourage our creative expression. She emphasizes the importance of play and experimentation, allowing ourselves to explore new ideas and try new things without the pressure of perfection. Brown also advocates for creating a space, both physical and mental, where we can engage in creative activities without distractions or interruptions. The chapter concludes with a reflection on the transformative power of creativity. Brown encourages readers to let go of comparison and embrace their unique creative gifts. She emphasizes that creativity is not about achieving perfection or meeting external standards, but about expressing our true selves and making meaningful contributions to the world. Chapter 7, Cultivating Play and Rest, Letting Go of Exhaustion as a Status Symbol and Productivity as Self-Worth. Here Brown explores the essential role of play and rest in living a wholehearted life. She argues that our culture's obsession with productivity and busyness undermines our well-being and prevents us from experiencing true joy and fulfillment. Brown explains that play and rest are not luxuries but necessities for our physical, emotional, and mental health. Brown defines play as any activity that is purposeless, fun, and pleasurable. She references the work of Dr. Stuart Brown, who describes play as a biological imperative, essential for brain development and social bonding. Play allows us to let go of our roles and responsibilities, tap into our creativity, and experience joy. It is through play that we explore new ideas, build resilience, and connect with others. The chapter addresses the societal pressures that discourage play and rest. From a young age, we are conditioned to value productivity and achievement over leisure and relaxation. This conditioning leads to a culture of exhaustion, where people wear their busyness as a badge of honor. Brown explains that this mindset is detrimental to our well-being and relationships, as it fosters stress, burnout, and disconnection. Brown shares personal stories and research findings to illustrate the importance of play and rest. She recounts her own struggles with letting go of busyness and embracing downtime. Through her research, she discovered that the most resilient and joyful people prioritize play and rest in their lives. These individuals understand that taking time to relax and have fun is essential for their overall well-being and effectiveness. The chapter delves into the concept of shame resilience and how it relates to play and rest. Brown explains that many people feel shame around the idea of taking time for themselves. They fear being perceived as lazy or unproductive and worry about falling behind. To overcome this shame, Brown emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries and challenging the cultural norms that equate self-worth with productivity. Brown also discusses the role of rest in our lives. She highlights the importance of getting adequate sleep and taking breaks throughout the day. Rest allows our bodies and minds to recover, enhancing our creativity, problem-solving abilities, and emotional regulation. Brown references research showing that chronic sleep deprivation impairs cognitive function and increases the risk of various health issues. The chapter includes practical strategies for incorporating play and rest into our daily lives. Brown suggests scheduling time for play and relaxation, just as we would for work and other responsibilities. She encourages readers to find activities that bring them joy and to engage in them regularly. Brown also advocates for creating a supportive environment that values and encourages play and rest. To cultivate play and rest, Brown recommends embracing the concept of wholeheartedness. This involves letting go of perfectionism and the need to be constantly productive. She encourages readers to practice self-compassion and to recognize that taking care of themselves is essential for their well-being and effectiveness. By prioritizing play and rest, we can build resilience, enhance our relationships, and experience greater joy and fulfillment. Chapter 8: Cultivating Calm and Stillness, Letting Go of Anxiety as a Lifestyle. In Chapter 8, Brown explores the importance of incorporating calm and stillness into our lives as a counterbalance to the anxiety that pervades modern society. She begins by defining calm as creating perspective and mindfulness while managing emotional reactivity. Stillness, on the other hand, is about quieting our mind and resting our bodies. Both practices are essential for developing resilience and living a wholehearted life. Brown discusses how our culture often values anxiety and busyness, equating them with productivity and success. We live in a society that praises being constantly on the go, leading to a state where anxiety becomes a lifestyle rather than an occasional response to stress. This chronic anxiety not only impacts our mental health but also affects our physical well-being, relationships, and overall quality of life. The chapter delves into the concept of anxiety as a lifestyle and how it manifests in our daily routines. Brown explains that many people use anxiety as a way to feel in control. By staying busy and constantly doing, they avoid confronting deeper fears and insecurities. However, this constant state of doing prevents them from experiencing true peace and fulfillment. Brown shares personal stories and research findings to illustrate the detrimental effects of chronic anxiety. She recounts her own struggles with anxiety and how it affected her health and relationships. Through her research, she discovered that those who live wholehearted lives prioritize calm and stillness. These individuals understand the importance of taking time to rest and recharge, allowing them to approach life with a clearer mind and a more balanced perspective. The chapter introduces practical strategies for cultivating calm and stillness. Brown emphasizes the importance of mindfulness practices, such as meditation, deep breathing exercises, and yoga. These practices help to quiet the mind, reduce stress, and promote a sense of inner peace. She also highlights the benefits of creating a calm environment by decluttering physical spaces and setting boundaries to protect personal time. Brown explores the concept of dig deep, which stands for getting deliberate, inspired, and going. She explains that cultivating calm and stillness requires deliberate effort and intentional actions. This might involve setting aside specific times for relaxation, creating rituals that promote stillness, and seeking out activities that inspire a sense of calm. Brown encourages readers to experiment with different forms of stillness and find what works best for them. The chapter also addresses the challenges of letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Brown acknowledges that many people struggle with the idea of slowing down and fear being perceived as lazy or unproductive. She emphasizes that letting go of anxiety does not mean becoming complacent, but rather finding a healthier balance between activity and rest. Brown shares tips for overcoming these challenges, such as practicing self-compassion, setting realistic expectations, and seeking support from loved ones. Chapter 9: Cultivating Meaningful Work, Letting Go of Self-Doubt and Supposed to. Here, Brown explores the importance of finding and engaging in work that brings purpose and fulfillment to our lives. She begins by addressing the cultural pressures that dictate what we are supposed to do, which often leads us to pursue careers and activities that do not align with our true passions and talents. Brown argues that meaningful work is essential for living a wholehearted life, and it involves using our gifts and talents to contribute to the world in ways that resonate deeply with us. Brown defines meaningful work as work that inspires and energizes us, allowing us to use our strengths and make a positive impact. She emphasizes that meaningful work is not limited to paid employment but can include any activities that bring a sense of purpose, whether it be parenting, volunteering, or creative pursuits. The key is to find work that aligns with our values and allows us to express our authentic selves. The chapter delves into the barriers that prevent people from engaging in meaningful work. One of the primary barriers is self-doubt. Brown explains that many people struggle with feelings of inadequacy and fear that they do not have any special gifts or talents to offer. This self-doubt undermines their ability to recognize and cultivate their unique strengths. Brown shares stories from her research participants who have overcome self-doubt and discovered their passions through experimentation and perseverance. Another significant barrier is the societal pressure to conform to certain expectations and supposed messages. These messages dictate what success looks like and often lead people to pursue careers and lifestyles that do not align with their true selves. Brown emphasizes the importance of challenging these messages and redefining success on our own terms. She encourages readers to reflect on their values and passions and to make deliberate choices that prioritize meaningful work over societal approval. Brown shares her own experiences with finding meaningful work and the challenges she faced along the way. She recounts how she struggled with self-doubt and the pressure to conform to traditional career paths. Through her journey, she discovered that meaningful work involves a combination of passion, talent, and a sense of purpose. Brown emphasizes that meaningful work is not always easy or straightforward, but it is deeply rewarding and essential for living a fulfilling life. The chapter includes practical strategies for cultivating meaningful work. Brown suggests starting by identifying our strengths and passions and exploring how they can be used to contribute to the world. She encourages readers to experiment with different activities and to be open to new possibilities. Brown also emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries and making intentional choices that align with our values. Brown introduces the concept of /careers, where individuals combine multiple roles and activities to create a fulfilling work-life balance. She shares examples of people who have successfully integrated their passions into their careers, such as a lawyer who is also a chef and a teacher who is also an artist. These stories illustrate that meaningful work can take many forms and that it is possible to create a life that reflects our diverse interests and talents. Chapter 10, Cultivating Laughter, Song, and Dance, Letting Go of Being Cool and Always in Control. In the last chapter, Brown explores the essential role of joy and self-expression in living a wholehearted life. She emphasizes that laughter, song, and dance are powerful tools for connection and resilience, yet they are often suppressed by the pressures of being perceived as cool and in control. Brown begins by discussing the cultural messages that discourage spontaneous and joyful self-expression. From a young age, we are taught to value composure and control, leading many to avoid activities that might make them appear silly or awkward. This suppression of joy not only robs us of happiness but also isolates us from others. Brown explains that laughter, song, and dance create emotional and spiritual connections, reminding us that we are not alone. The chapter delves into the concept of being cool as a barrier to wholehearted living. Brown argues that striving to be cool is about minimizing vulnerability and avoiding ridicule. This need to manage perceptions often leads people to suppress their true selves and avoid activities that might expose them to judgment. Brown shares personal stories and anecdotes from her research participants to illustrate how the fear of being uncool can prevent us from fully engaging in life. One of the key themes in this chapter is the idea of full-body vulnerability. Brown explains that dancing, singing, and laughing require us to let go of control and be present in the moment. These activities involve a level of openness and exposure that can feel uncomfortable, but they are also deeply rewarding. Brown recounts her own experiences of dancing in public and the liberating feeling of letting go of self-consciousness. The chapter also addresses the importance of laughter in building resilience. Brown refers to knowing laughter as a form of spiritual communion that fosters connection and healing. This type of laughter arises from shared experiences and understanding, allowing people to bond over their imperfections and vulnerabilities. Brown emphasizes that true laughter is not about making fun of others or using humor as a defense mechanism but about sharing joy and authenticity. Brown explores the role of music in emotional expression and connection. She describes how songs can evoke powerful memories and emotions, creating a sense of unity and belonging. Brown shares her personal soundtrack and the impact that music has had on her life. She encourages readers to create their own playlists and use music as a tool for self-expression and connection. Dancing, according to Brown, is another powerful form of self-expression that fosters connection and joy. She acknowledges that many people feel self-conscious about dancing, but she emphasizes that it is a natural and instinctual activity. Brown shares stories from her research participants who have found freedom and joy in dancing, even in the face of fear and judgment. The chapter concludes with practical strategies for cultivating laughter, song, and dance in our lives. Brown suggests making deliberate choices to incorporate these activities into our daily routines, such as turning on music while doing chores, creating themed playlists, and setting aside time for dancing and singing. She also encourages readers to embrace their goofy and silly sides, allowing themselves to experience the joy of uninhibited self-expression. Final thoughts. In this section, Brown reflects on the journey of wholehearted living and the ongoing process of embracing imperfection and vulnerability. She reiterates the key themes of the book, emphasizing that wholehearted living is not about achieving a perfect state but about continuously striving for authenticity, connection, and resilience. Brown begins by acknowledging that the path to wholehearted living is not easy. It requires constant effort, courage, and the willingness to face our fears and vulnerabilities. She emphasizes that the journey is ongoing and that there will always be challenges and setbacks. However, by cultivating the guideposts outlined in the book, we can build a life that is rich in meaning, joy, and connection. One of the central themes in this section is the importance of self-compassion. Brown reiterates that we must be kind to ourselves as we navigate the ups and downs of life. Self-compassion involves recognizing our worthiness and treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend. Brown encourages readers to practice self-compassion as a way to build resilience and foster a sense of belonging. Brown also reflects on the role of vulnerability in wholehearted living. She explains that vulnerability is the core of all emotions and experiences that bring meaning and purpose to our lives. By embracing vulnerability, we open ourselves up to love, joy, creativity, and connection. Brown emphasizes that vulnerability is not a weakness but a strength that allows us to live fully and authentically. The Final Thoughts section also addresses the importance of community and support. Brown encourages readers to seek out and nurture relationships that provide love, encouragement, and acceptance. She explains that we cannot navigate the journey of wholehearted living alone and that having a supportive community is essential for our well-being. Brown shares stories from her own life and research to illustrate the power of connection and the impact of having a supportive network. Brown concludes the book by encouraging readers to embrace their imperfections and to live with courage and authenticity. She reminds us that we are enough just as we are and that our worthiness is not contingent on external achievements or validation. By letting go of perfectionism and embracing our true selves, we can experience the fullness of life and cultivate a deep sense of love and belonging. Thank you for joining our quest for infinite growth. If you enjoyed this, please like and follow Infinite Self-Improvement on all social media and podcasts. We'll see you soon, but until then, remember that your potential is infinite.